Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to my long-range shooting guide. And the first thing that we want to do is to set up our controls. We go on to tank controls, weaponry, and we go right to the bottom. And then we have two settings. First, crosshair lighting, and I set that to L, and then sight distance control. Now I set mine to the arrow keys. This is still a bit of German setting, and increase value and decrease value are important, and the control sensitivity, the relative control sensitivity, set that to 20%. And if you have done this, we are ready for a bit more theory. Today's video is sponsored by the Free Eagles app for War Thunder. Download the app in the video description below and use the code shown on screen to get 10 golden eagles right now. So we are here on the second battle of El Alamein. I'm in my Leopard with an L7 gun that has really good long-range capabilities. Now here there is my friend Exe, and well, he is quite a distance away. And just by looking at the map, I want to figure out how close can I get my first shot. And you know, explain it here is a bit difficult, so I switched to this view. So the following is a bit more theory. So the first point is here, and yeah, that's me, and this is the target Exe. So how can we guess the distance without using the rangefinder? Well, one of those squares is exactly 400 meters long. You have 10 of these squares on the minimap, and that means we are fighting on a 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer map. Now there are city maps, for example on Berlin, where the squares seem to have a different size, just 200 meters. So I just go down the line, literally, and we can see that I have around about 5 squares to go, so that I have a rough estimation. I did this on purpose for numerous reasons. One of them is it's a guess. It's a guess for a long range shot, and we have here quite a distance, because 5 times 400 meters equals around about 2,000 meters. Now, to really sit always exactly on a point where all the squares meet, or a square cross, so to speak, is a rather rare occasion. And it's even rarer so that also your target sits quite there. So this was my rough guess. And the real distance was 2,150 meters, roughly. And that is, again, a rough guess, but it makes it so much better for a first shot than to really just wildly guess. Another kind of exemplary case would be when I sit just around about here and my target sits exactly diagonal to the squares. This can also happen. So there is Pythagoras, but he is dead quite some time. Let's just memory his work. We have A, B, and C, and because there is a 90-degree angle involved, we can calculate C in theory by adding A to the power of 2 to B to the power of 2 and get the root out of that. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And nobody does this in battle. So if A and B are roughly equal, you can just guess C by multiplying A with 1.4. And with that, you have a rough guess, so 1.5 or 50% additional to that, and you have roughly the range. Now, this is important for the first shot. And with having our settings set to that, you have to hit the target with at least the second shot. This is especially important for tanks with kind of a long reload rate. So for example, 122, 128 millimeter guns. And also with the scopes, if you switch between the ammunition, you want to know how to set or reset your settings so that you can hit your target. Now, with this theory, let's go into a bit of test shooting. So with this theory in mind, let's go to the shooting and we guess 2000 meters. We shoot with APDS and we hit our target with the first shot. Now this is so much important because there are different tanks with different scopes, and there is also, if you miss by multiple 100 meters, like if you have guessed 600, to readjust them for that is pretty damn hard. Now let's switch ammunition type to the hash, and the hash has a completely different trajectory than the APDS, but it doesn't lose penetration. And there you can see how the scaling differs. And with our manual adjustment for the range, we kind of remember it that we had around about 2150 meters and our first shell hits. How often can you reliably hit the target at that distance with a different shell type? I think this is a huge advantage, and well, you have to practice it. Everything that moves on the horizon, you still have to aim or lead properly. And that's basically everything that is important to know. So, this is a scene from my tank review on the Object 120. I use the rangefinder, I adjust the range a little bit, and I see some movement. I'm actually not flat on the ground, but a little bit on the hill, so you have to also adjust for that. But yet I managed to hit this M103 in the engine compartment, immobilize him, look for where the smoke comes because I cannot see through the trees, and I am now using also the hit camera to adjust this. Now why is that still important? Because you can fire through bushes without being seen by the opponent, and I think that long-range shooting is quite an essential part of enjoying the game, also getting used to maps, and if you like to visit the very same spots from which you want to oversee the map or a capture zone or whatever, you can range find certain spots and also remember them for the future, hitting your targets with the very first shot that you make. Further advantages are that when you have to go into cover and, for example, go on the other side of a hill and go hull down, you immediately have a very good idea how far the enemy is away. But if you then go, for example, into brawling situations in city fight or something like that, never forget to readjust your aim, because you are used to overlead the target when you are having the normal sight. And with that in mind, sometimes if you then have still the long range settings and you go into brawling situation, you miss at short ranges because your sight is set differently. Never forget this. You have to get used to that. You have to really train it. Go into a custom battle with one of your friends, try it out, and immediately you will see the benefits of that. Especially for teamwork, you can range find an enemy when you, for example, don't have a gun that does reliably pan him, or he's at the wrong angle, but your friend is kind of the same distance away. You can tell him the distance, and so he can properly aim more correctly. All that is in conjunction with each other and helps to improve your game experience, your hit ratio, and ultimately, hopefully, also your kill ratio. So especially in higher tiers at certain maps, for example the 38th parallel, when you go for the eastern spawn, there is ultimately a lot of camping going on, and if you want to counter snipe them, you have to be really, really careful. So when you also have the range and the distance, you can also fire through smoke much more reliably. And I think that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section how useful that was for you, what additional tips and tricks you have, and let me also know if you have done your first experiences, what impact it had on your game experience, your gameplay, and so on. So Please don't forget to give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we will see each other on the battlefields and in the skies of War Thunder.